I mention and sometimes make light of the fact that I'm getting old. And what that means is I've seen a lot of life, and it means that I've kind of seen shifts in various things. Though like the frog in the warm water pot that is brought up to boiling in a very slow way, it's a lot harder to recognize certain of the things that you see as you go along. But I still remember a lot of them. And I'm going to give you a homework assignment. I'm going to ask you, not nicely, I can't make you do anything you don't want to look back in time, particularly at politicians on the left. And I'm going to give you one in particular to look at, and that would be John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And I want you to look at what sort of policy positions, and what sort of speech, what sort of rhetoric and so forth JFK or John F. Kennedy used. I want you to do that. I want you to pay attention to that. I think you're going to notice something that's really important, and it is that what used to be left is now right, is now what people would consider right. I'm going to talk some more about all of this, of course, on today's Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt. Today is, as I have said in the post thing for this, Wednesday, the 19th of May of 2021. And our subject, as I say, today is leaning left and right. I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to read through my notes, as I have a habit to do a lot of times. What I said in my notes was this: it can certainly be argued that pretty much everybody leans to the left or the right to some degree. Everybody. I don't know anybody who can say otherwise. If you really looked at it, you could sort of argue that some of the people that are mostly considered rightists are really more like centrist. And this, I think, is what I would say about somebody like Tim Pool. I would not say that Tim Pool is a leftist. I would say that he's a centrist. He's a centrist leaning slightly left, to be fair. But he's a centrist, and I'm a centrist leaning slightly right, by the way, or maybe a little more than slightly, but certainly at least slightly right. Here's the funny little reality. Those on the left tend to be much further on the left in general, this is not always true, than those on the right are to the right. Further, most right-leaning folks abhor folks many count far right. They don't like them at all. They're on the right, yet they don't like those folks who are considered to be really, really far right. And I'm going to totally ignore things like National Socialism as opposed to whether it's right or left. Right? We're going to totally ignore that. If you look at right-leaning people, you will find that many who are on the right, are really on the right, heavily on the right, are not at all looked at favorably by those who are rightist but not far right. You need only look as far as who's currently in Congress and the office of the presidency from the left to get a picture of just how far left those on that side of the aisle have become. I mean, literally, we've got people espousing what amount to socialist policies, right? Really, really socialist policies, not some lightweight socialist thing, compared to many who are still both reasonably popular and still in various offices on the right. It's obvious the left is driving over a cliff in their swerving off the road in the direction they support. I'm sorry, that's a really valid thing to say. What I said about Kennedy, there are a couple of things to consider. Number one, if you look, at what it meant to be a leftist in the 60s, to be as far left as the sitting president as a Democrat. In the 60s, you would look at that person, and if somebody read their speeches to you or told you about their policies and didn't tell you who it was, you would very likely consider them a rightist. I challenge you to look at JFK's policies and see if that's not true for you. And he's not alone in that, okay? And here's the funny thing. Though those who were on the right were farther to the right at that point, because those on the left were not horribly far on the left, you really couldn't tell that those on the right were any farther to the right than anybody in the present day. And I want to point something out. There has been a tendency, and many people have noted this, for those on the right to move farther left as those on the left move farther right? No, move farther left. In other words, in society as a whole, there has been a tendency of movement towards the left, even on the part of those on the right. There are some who I think probably move farther right as a result of the fact that those on the left were moving to the left. But most people, rather than move away from the left, they continue to move towards them. I would put it in these terms. I would say that lots of the people on the right think that they're working towards reconciliation, towards being conciliatory towards those on the left. And the way they show that is to move to the left themselves as the people on the left move ever further to the left. And what that means is that for society as a whole, and in large part, what's happening is most people, even those on the right, are moving towards the left. I know that people will say that those on the right are horribly right-wing. I have news for you. I pretty much know nobody in major political office. I know no major political pundit. I can't think literally of anybody who isn't all but ostracized. I'll put it that way. Who isn't all but ostracized, who's on the right, who's farther right than really mostly either center or even slightly to the left. If you look at things that certain people on the right are saying today, they might edge a little bit to the right of JFK. Not much, just a little. If you think that makes them far right-leaning individuals, I think you probably are just a tiny bit confused. This is the thing I wanted to sort of bring up with this video. If you look at how things are right now, and even are willing to go a little bit into the past, you will notice a shift to the left. But if you are willing to go back to the 60s and 50s and look at what it meant to be a Democrat at that time, for the most part, what you are going to see is a massive shift to the left, not just on the part of the Democrats, mind you. Those are the first people you can look at and say that about. But on the part of Republicans as well. The point of all of this is that when you talk about people who are leaning to the left, far too many, and I could name names if you wanted. I can name Joe Biden, I can name Kamala Harris, I can certainly pick Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, definitely Rashida Tlaib, definitely Ilhan Omar, right? Maxine Waters. If you look at all of these people, right, you'll see that they're moving heavily toward the left, and that the younger they are, the more likely it is that they're going to do that. On the other hand, if you look at even people who are considered to be right-leaning at present, they don't sound whacked out, right? Even if you look at the heavy hitters, even if you look at, I'm trying to think of his name, Ted Cruz, even if you look at, pick a name, really. One of my senators, I think, Tom Cotton. If you look at a lot of these guys, you're going to see people who are far from being really, really heavily on the right. And it obviously matters what you consider on the right. Okay, that's obvious. And on the left, it matters. But like I say, I'll tell you this. If nothing else is true, if you look back 50, 70 years, 60, 70 years now, if you look back that far, you will note something. Those people on the left were nowhere near as far on the left as those people who are on the left today. And if you look at the people on the right, you will notice that even though they were not even heavily right-leaning 60, 70 years ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago, they were substantially farther to the right than people today. Okay? This is a reality. And I'm waiting to see whether or not we get a pendulum swing going back in that other direction over the course of time. We may or may not. I hear people say that it happens, it swings one way, it swings the other, and swings back again. I don't know for sure how that's going to work out. But that's my take on things. I really believe we're moving steadily leftward at this point in time, and it's a bad thing overall. Okay, this is the Daily Summation. I am your host. I am Kurt. The Daily Summation is brought to you by Kurt's Religion and Politics. Today is Wednesday, the 19th of May of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Thursday, the 20th of May of 2021. moving towards that weekend. Thanks to everybody who's on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. Remember that you can like my videos on YouTube if you want to do that. You can, of course, dislike them if you want as well. You can give me a positive rumble on Rumble if you choose to do that. Today we have been talking about leaning right and left, and tomorrow's subject is going to be wages and prices. This is a very, very important thing that I want people to come to understand. So I'm going to take a segment and I'm going to talk on that topic tomorrow. Hope everything is going well for you. Hope you're doing well. We're getting a little bit of rain here, but it's not horribly bad weather. It's been quite nice for a while now, in fact, and I'm quite pleased by that. Again, hope things are going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Wednesday, May 19th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.